everybody, and welcome back to Beyond the Whistle. Today is Season 4, Episode 6, and we have a little bit of a different episode today. The first half of the episode, we're going to be talking about the NBA season so far, and second half, we're going to be transitioning over to NFL Week 10. I'm Henry Lapin, joined by John Frieders, Patrick Neville, and Ryan Bell, and today we're going to be talking about the NBA, so let's just get straight into it. NBA has been crazy so far. Of course, the Cavs still undefeated up to this point. There's been a lot of good teams like Knicks and Pacers in the East, which have just been pretty dysfunctional so far. So, Frieders, what is your biggest takeaway or surprise of the NBA season so far?
Yeah, I think my biggest surprise so far has definitely been the Milwaukee Bucks. Definitely expected to perform better than they have been performing recently, averaging just about 111 points per game. Really not able to get the offense going, which includes obviously Giannis and Damian Lillard, Chris Middleton. But I think one of the big losses was Drew Holiday, where they need to get him back in, and they decided to trade him away. Not sure how much better Damian Lillard is than Drew Holiday.
Yeah, PJ?
I think probably the biggest surprise for a lot of people was the Cavs' hot start. Obviously, 15-0 as of when we're filming this. That's third best in NBA history, and they're still going, right? They haven't been beaten yet, so I think they've got a great front court and some great coaching as well, really helping to contribute to all that and a great hot start.
Yeah.
Bell?
Yeah, I'm going to talk about the Celtics. I don't think you can talk about the NBA without mentioning the defending champs. Right now, 11-3, sitting second in the Eastern Conference. And I will say, tomorrow night, big game against the Cavs. So that could be the first loss for Cleveland. Yeah. Not a regular season game. That's part of the in-season tournament. But Boston's doing pretty well so far, 11-3. And as a fan, I'm liking it. And also just noting the 76ers 2-10, bottom of the Eastern Conference right now. So that's good to know.
Yeah. So Bell, do you know that if the Cavs win tomorrow, they'll have the second longest winning streak?
I did see that online.
Second longest winning streak ever. So, that big game brings obviously two really good teams together, but also some history on the line as well for a game like that. Could be probably the best game of the NBA season up to today's date.
Yeah, that's going to be a fun one to watch.
Yeah, so just how do you guys feel about that in-season tournament, though? You guys a big fan of it, or I
don't know if I like it. I think they're already playing enough games with the 82-game regular season, and players are sitting out so much anyways that I think the in-season tournament, there's no really incentive. I get that the champions obviously are getting more money, which I'm sure they're enjoying that, but I don't really see a need to play as many extra games compared to just a regular season.
Yeah,
and I think also, you've got the NBA Finals at the end of the season, which is kind of like
that's the goal.
Your big,
everyone's
your
looking
big
for
tournament, right? Nobody actually kind of really cares
who's
about
celebrating winning the in-season tournament.
LeBron won. Jordan never won it. Jordan never won it. So LeBron,
LeBron is celebrating that.
Yeah.
But it's not. It doesn't matter where you are at the start of the season. I mean, we are still pretty much in the first quarter of the season, so this is pretty much who had the best, preseason and start of the season. But that's not what you're working for the NBA, or really for any kind of sport. And this is the one sport that we've seen an in-season tournament like this, and I don't really like it. I think obviously it's still new, it's pretty experimental, but I think I like just kind of the postseason, where you've accumulated everything that you've had over the season.
Yeah, have one goal at the end of the season. So now we're going into a different segment, a contender or pretender. These are teams that we think will either make a run in the playoffs or teams that first-round eliminations or even miss the playoffs in general. So, John, who do you think is a contender or pretender in the NBA season?
I don't know. Yeah, this might be a little bit of a hot take, but I'm not sure I'm really sold on the Golden State Warriors. They're playing pretty well right now. They're 10-2, first in the Western Conference, but I don't know if their roster really is a playoff roster. They've got some solid defense, but when it comes to the postseason, you talk about postseason basketball, the differences between the postseason and the regular season. The physicality ramps up a lot, and it starts to get really physical. You don't get as many calls as you're getting during the regular season, and it's a lot more defensive oriented. So not sure how well the Warriors are going to do. Obviously, they replaced Klay Thompson with Buddy Hield, has been really good so far, but it'll be interesting to see kind of how the season progresses and then what happens when they hit the playoffs.
Well, just going off of that, I don't know how you could call the Warriors not a postseason team, considering their recent success, over the past decade. With you still got Steph Curry and Draymond Green in there, so two multi-time NBA champions. I don't know how you can call that a not postseason team.
Yeah,
if Draymond's playing though, we'll have to see. he has a tendency to get a bunch of technicals. Don't know how much he's going to play and really contribute, and he can cause some locker room drama.
I like
George
embracing
Pickens.
debate here. This is good.
He's the George Pickens of the NBA, pretty much, just starting fights with
I love
everyone.
Jordan. Do you see yesterday he got a 2-yard gain? He pointed for a first down. Gotta love that guy.
Yeah, so I'm talking about my New York Knicks, and I still think that they are contenders in the postseason. It's been a very rough start, 7-6. I mean, Karl Anthony Towns, I don't know who expected him to be the leading point scorer.
Yeah.
I mean, Jalen Brunson leading in assists, but Anthony Towns has been basically a stud for the Knicks so far. He's been exactly what we wanted in a big man, of course. We've had a bunch of rookies helping us out with Tyler Kolek. He's been great. Packham Didit's been getting some more playing time. But OG Anunoby, that contract's not looking great right now. He's not been as good as anyone would have hoped for him to be this year. But I think no matter the minutes or whoever's on the court for the Knicks, whatever 5 guys they roll out are going to be good enough to take them throughout this 82-game season into a deep playoff run like last year. I think they've only gotten better over the offseason, and they're still catching their groove.
And I think just building off of that, right, and you guys may come at me for this, but I'm a Villanova fan, and obviously they're calling them the Nova Knicks.
Kyle Neptune.
Don't even get me started on that. But this team has a lot of championship experience, maybe not necessarily in the NBA, but at the collegiate level, a lot of those guys were 1 or 2-time NCAA champions, which, if you know anything about March Madness, that takes a toll on you. So they've been through it before, and they could definitely get there again.
Yeah, and also, right, they probably have one of the hardest arenas to play in when it comes to postseason. Madison Square Garden is a different animal, so if they can get a couple of home games, maybe secure home court advantage, that could play to their advantage as well. It's so hard to play at the Garden, especially against a tough New York Knicks team.
Yeah, MSG. Remember when it was Knicks Hawks a couple years ago? That playoff
that was
series.
crazy.
Trae Young got verbally abused pretty bad.
His
so.
hairline was awful.
Oh yeah, dude, the signs and self anecdote. I went to Madison Square Garden a couple years ago to watch a March Madness game, FAU versus Kansas State, and it wasn't the Knicks, but atmosphere is always rocking to Madison Square Garden. Hoo, go Owls.
Yeah, you started.
What do we think about injuries though? Thibodeau keeps that rotation short. He's got 5, 6, 7 guys that are playing most of the minutes. What do we think about kind of Karl Anthony Towns, his durability? You got some of the other guys, their durability when it comes to postseason.
I mean, they're obviously been conditioned for that in the offseason and leading up to the season. They've been probably practicing, playing, some guys playing 40 minutes a game, especially Brunson. I mean, he probably sits for like a minute a game, bro. He's barely on the bench at all. But OG Anunoby, Karl Anthony Towns, some of those guys are a little more injury prone. I do kind of worry about them, but they've been good so far. No one's had any major injuries, so I don't think that's going to be too big of a concern right now.
Yeah, and I think also you can't be concerned about injuries, playing a sport like this because it's inevitable. And, if you're too worried about guys like Karl Anthony Towns getting injured every night, you're not going to play him, and that's your best player or, one of them. But, why would you not play your best player if you're scared of him getting injured and he's not going to play anyways? So, might as well use him when you can.
So, PJ, who's your contender or pretender?
I've got the Cleveland Cavaliers.
Yeah.
Obviously, the 15-0 start, like I mentioned earlier. But that's, this is a team that has kind of been historically mid over the past couple of years, ever since LeBron left. But I think this year they've got a great group of guys that can do it. Obviously, you've got Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell. Those two have, done great things for the city of Cleveland recently. And kind of brought them back into the glory days that they've had, back when LeBron was there.
Yeah, I think that one thing that makes the Cleveland Cavaliers special, too, we've seen it these first couple games. You got that strong front court. You got the strong presence of Evan Mobley down low. That kind of his flourishing this season has been really great to see. And also, you mentioned their entire five's returning from last year. They're just injury-riddled in the playoffs last year, which really came down to affect them down the stretch. But coming back into this season, they got a bunch of returning guys. They got that chemistry. They're playing their best basketball that they've ever played, 15-0, which we've talked about. They pick up a big win against the Celtics tomorrow night. You even get more pressure on them. But just coming back with that group of returning guys, you definitely consider them top two team in the Eastern Conference. Really, probably the Celtics, the only other team that can contend with them, and we'll see what they can do later on.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Cavs, I think they're excited to play the Celtics, obviously, tomorrow night. And then if they play them in the playoffs, I think they're going to feel good that we can beat them, right? You lost to them in the playoffs last year, but you mentioned it, they had injuries, so it wasn't a fully healthy team. And I think if they go against the Celtics this year, that could be a 7-game series. Both those teams, I think, have established themselves as possibly the two best in the East. Definitely right now, and as the season goes on, you got to keep track of that. But I think the front runners right now are Cleveland and Boston in the East.
Yeah, I saw someone on Twitter. They had a ticket on FanDuel, 1 to 10 million odds that 82-0 for the Cavaliers.
That's interesting.
Is that just giving?
You're just giving Vegas all your money.
Giving
right there.
Vegas all the money. Payout was like $100 million or something. But
Gamble responsibly.
Of course. PJ,
Please do not bet on anyone going 80.
Yeah, that's the way to lose your money.
All right, Bell, round us out. Contender or pretender?
I'm going to go pretender in the Eastern Conference. I'm looking at the Orlando Magic right now. They sit third in the East and they're first in their division, but Paolo Banchero's hurt right now. He's going to be out 4 to 6 weeks. I don't think Jalen Suggs and Franz Wagner, as good as they are, I don't think they can really establish themselves as a top two in a really loaded Eastern Conference. And, come playoff time, if you're going to match up with Cleveland or you're going to match up with Boston, they're definitely going to lose those series. That could be a sweep or 5 games. And even those lesser teams in the Eastern Conference, like Indiana, I know Milwaukee's not doing too well right now, but you got to imagine they'll kind of come back later in the season. I mean, I think the Magic might win their division. Not very good, but I think they're a first-round exit in the playoffs. I'm just not sure. Banchero's got to stay healthy, and I'm just not sure he will, the rest of the season.
And I think also just building off of that, they don't really have much playoff experience. This is, a team with a lot of young guys who have been on the Magic who have not made the playoffs or really done anything, made any noise the past couple of years. So this could also be a team who we may see drop in the rankings a lot and, probably might wind up in that play-in game or something down there where they're fighting just for playoff position alone.
It's funny. We haven't really touched on the Western Conference. You got Victor Wembanyama putting up some star numbers right now. You got the Thunder, who are also playing some really good basketball as well. I mean, we haven't touched on the Western Conference. Any thoughts on the Western Conference?
I mean, they have 11 teams with over 7 wins. Meanwhile, the East only has 5 teams with over 7 wins. It's just been dominance on the West side. I think East is going to catch up to them soon, but I mean, it's been really competitive. I think the Mavericks are going to step it up soon. I mean, the Jazz just look awful right now, sitting at 3-10. I do think they'll turn it around soon, but definitely playoffs are almost out of reach for them at this point, I think.
Yeah, I'm looking at the Western Conference. The Clippers are 11th right now. They're not even in a play-in spot, nonetheless a playoff spot. They're 7-7. I mean, you got to imagine if we're looking back at this in April, they could be top 4 in the Western Conference. So right now they're only 11th, and obviously, Dallas and Luka, they're 10th. They made the finals last year. They're 10th right now. So I think the depth that the Western Conference has definitely much better than the East, and that's going to be the conference we're going to look at throughout the season.
Yeah, and I think just kind of building off of what you said, Ryan, the West is so much more contested. I mean, you look at the top-seeded Warriors and the Thunder, right? Those guys with 10, 11 wins, and then 11-seed Clippers, 10-seed Mavericks with 7 wins. That's not a big margin. And then you go over to the East, and you've got 15 wins for the Cavs, and then the 11-seed Bulls is 5 wins. So I think, it's a lot easier for us to just talk about the East right now because we're starting to see stuff kind of pan out versus the West is so much more contested that it's really hard to, make a prediction on who's going to do something this season.
Yeah. All right, so that's going to wrap us up for the NBA segment of our podcast. Stick around, though, because our NFL part is coming up just next. Quick shout-out, Ben Herbstreit. So sorry for your loss. Just Kirk as well. It's been a tough week for the Herbstreit family and college football in general. But I'm Henry Lapin, joined by John Frieders, Patrick Neville, Ryan Bell, and stay around because NFL segment's coming up next. Thank you. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Beyond the Whistle. Today is Season 4, Episode 6, and we are recapping the Week 10 of the NFL season. I'm Henry Lapin, joined by Rob Frangione, Jason Generalis, and Thad Burley, and great week of football happened last week. We saw a lot of underperforming players. I think that was more of a headline. Obviously, a great game by Jamar Chase, which one of us is going to dive a little bit deeper into that. But Week 10 just rounded off last week. We have Week 11 starting tonight with a key NFC East matchup. which we're going to go into depth later on. So, Rob, what were your key takeaways from Week 10, though?
It was a solid week. I think it was one of the weaker games of the season, or weaker schedules, slates of the week so far season. Just because, I feel like you didn't really have as many good games outside of the Ravens-Bengals one. Then the Steelers-Washington one. Speaking of Washington, this past Tuesday, something very big occurred in our nation's capital, where Washington, D.C. gained a new leader. I am talking, of course, about cornerback Marshawn Lattimore, who will be joining the Washington Commanders for the rest of the season. Hasn't made his debut yet, but he's going to be one of those guys that can really help reinforce that defense. Unfortunately, the Commanders' run defense is really the weaker part of that team. So, if you ask me, they probably should have gone there, tried to restock on that after Jonathan Allen's been gone. But, that passing defense, it's going to be deadly.
Yeah, but I don't know if we even saw any defensive linemen get traded at the deadline.
Yeah, Preston Smith.
Market was definitely
Preston
cold.
Smith
Well,
for
yeah.
the Steelers, yeah.
Well, a 36-year-old edge rusher. He's not even
bad.
Well, yeah, he's just slow.
That's
He's not good anymore. He's 10 years past his prime.
you got to say. I forget he sacked someone this past week.
Yeah, he
Right,
did
Daniels.
in that big Steelers one.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at another Steelers player, Mike Williams, got out of the hellhole that was the New York Jets. Jason, your fault. So it was great play, great connection with him and Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson looks rejuvenated. He looks like he's like 10 years younger. Hairlines start seemingly coming back. Mike Tomlin had an office moment where he just looked at the camera. That was the funniest thing I've seen all week. Just pointed thumbs up at the camera. Mike Williams and Russell Wilson, they're making the Steelers team actual contenders for a deep playoff run this year. And I think it's going to be interesting at the end of the year who they talk about at quarterback. Both quarterbacks are on a contract year, I believe.
Russell Wilson's been balling out. I don't see why you wouldn't keep him around.
Yeah, but
neither.
then Justin Fields' career is over. He's not going to get
Oh,
another
well.
chance.
Oh, well.
Wow.
Justin Fields started them. What did he start them 4-2?
Yeah, and then
Yeah.
but he didn't look great in that. He had a good
The
team around
offense has
him.
been so much better under Russell
So much
Wilson
better,
than
yeah.
Justin
Well,
Fields.
Do you guys know how their cap space is, or
They're middle.
fine.
They're middle. Yeah,
middle of the
they're
pack?
fine. So I don't think that.
We'll see. I guess I don't know.
Yeah, Fields cannot get extended. But another thing I saw was that anyway, no matter how bad the Chiefs play, they just win games. Isn't that right, Thad? They just win games. No matter what they do.
I just do not want to talk about it. I thought, watching that last play, like the NFL scripted, like all that stuff. That was horrible.
I felt so
Or the
bad for
Chiefs
every
are just
Broncos
a
fan
dime. That was
horrible.
watching that.
Or they're just a better coach team, better quarterback play, which is definitely the deciding factor.
Let's get to
in the
Jason.
game.
Let's get to Jason.
Yeah, I don't really want to keep talking about how good the Chiefs are.
Oh.
Maybe we could talk about like how maybe the Giants sliding into the 32 spot of teams in the NFL. I'm happy to see Bryce Young winning. You feel bad he
He's
got
on top
drafted
of
to a bad team. He's happy. The 49ers barely pulled out away with that win over the Bucks. Looks like the Bucks were gonna complete the comeback. I think they were down 10-0 at half. And then obviously you got, like a Vikings Jaguars where it was really just, a Vikings won on all field goals. Not a good showing from them. Sam
Terrible.
Darnold, 2 picks, something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was not good. Speaking of picks, you had the Lions winning with Jared Goff throwing 5 picks. But, overall, like Rob said, it wasn't the best slate of games. You had a couple interesting ones. If you're watching Red Zone, it's always interesting.
Of course.
But, yeah, excited for football next week.
Yeah, definitely looking forward to more next week. Thad, what do you got?
I just want to. I don't think there were that many surprising games, like we've all said. Thursday night really swept the show, right? 35-34. Doesn't get much better than that. You had an overtime game, putting Bryce Young back on his feet, right? But other than that, not too many surprising games. Great Steelers performance, but yeah.
Yeah. All right. So, Rob, player of the week, who had the best performance in Week 10?
Jamar Chase just went nuclear. 11 catches for 264 yards and 3 touchdowns. Had a 70-yard long touchdown. That's 55.4 fantasy points. Enough said. That's it. How can you not go with anyone? How can you go with anyone else? I know you're going with someone else, but how can you go with anyone else?
You can't.
Thank you.
Marquez Valdez-Scantling.
Oh my God!
Here it comes. Here it comes.
Just you can't expect anything. You can't expect anything out of him. And when he puts up 3 catches, 109 yards, 2 touchdowns, yeah, the expectations.
You're
for
insane.
Yeah,
No, you're insane.
he's just a
You
home
see
run
a dude
type
put up
player.
55.4 fantasy
I'm not
points,
impressed.
and
I've
you
seen
say
it before.
no.
I've seen it before.
You say no. I'm going with Marquez Valdez Scantling.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me?
No. Have you seen a guy like
You are
Marquez?
out of your mind.
I'm thinking out of the box here. Okay, he's just a deep ball threat every single play. You got that 67-yard moon ball from Derek Carr.
Jamar Chase had like the same thing.
Yeah, but he did that with Joe Burrow. That's less impressive. I could get 55. I could get at least 100 yards with Joe Burrow just throwing me the ball.
We
now.
played rec football together on Saturday, and you did nothing all game. What are you talking about?
He didn't have Joe Burrow throwing him.
Fair enough. Dylan Hart's
Yeah, Derek Carr, you would be in the hospital by now.
All right, let's hear from Jason.
All right, I also have Jamar Chase. I think
Thank
you can't go with anyone else. He almost had Lamar's passing yards as receiving yards. Lamar had 290 passing yards. Jamar Chase has 264
Hear that, Henry?
receiving yards
Yeah.
and 11 catches
not
and 3
Marcus Valdes
touchdowns.
Yeah.
And they lost that game.
See, Marquez Valdes-Scantling won the game for the Saints. Wins are a wide receiver stat.
I mean, it could.
Thad, who do you got?
I don't really think you can argue that against Jamar Chase. I'm taking Jamar Chase too.
Thank you.
Top 10 fantasy performance since 2000. I think he sneaks in at like number 9 or something.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
the second time he's put up 50 plus points. It's got to be him. It's got to be.
Yeah.
56 and 21, was it?
Yeah.
I think it was 55.6 or something.
Yeah, when anyone goes at the top of the top 10 list twice, I mean, like, how are you not going to put them?
Yeah.
How do you put Michael or Marquez Valdes-Scantling?
He doesn't even
And
know
he
his
can't-
name.
MVS.
You really can't blame Jamar Chase for a Bengals defense that put up -4 fantasy points.
Second time this year, by the way.
Yeah,
At least.
I think I had them starting in like one of my like leagues that I don't care about.
I wish we could see the Bengals and Ravens play every single week because
Yeah.
games this
They
year have
produce
been
absolute
incredible.
cinema. Yeah.
Hopefully we see them in some sort of championship or some sort of game in the playoffs.
That'd be great, yeah.
Yeah.
I think when the Ravens and Bengals play, I mean, like 7 out of 8 people pick Jamar Chase as like the player of the week,
Yeah.
other than obviously Henry, who picks his MVS.
Marquez Valdes-Scantling over here.
I'm a big fan of his. Rob, underachiever of the week, who just stunk it up in week 10.
All right, so I'm going Younghoe Koo.
Yeah.
You know, not the best performance from him this past week, and he missed 3 field goals. I know one was from 40-something yards out. If he had made any of those, that would have been either the difference in tying or winning that game. They lost by 3 points, 3 missed field goals. I mean, you know how it is. None of them were really that, like, not unreasonable for him to make.
Yeah.
But, that loss very well could cost the Falcons the division. I don't think it will. I think they'll be fine because the Buccaneers are injured to hell and back. But I don't think it'll drop them a playoff spot, though. I will be dropping him for fantasy, however. I picked up the Rams kicker already.
Yeah.
And yes, he lost me my fantasy game.
I mean,
Yes, he also lost me my fantasy game.
any field goal under 60 yards, you almost assume it's automatic in the
Especially
NFL.
nowadays, yeah.
Especially,
No, I mean,
Especially
60.
to Younghoe Koo. I mean, like he's
Yeah,
one of the
Younghoe
top.
Koo.
Yeah,
got a leg.
yeah, he's
Dude's got a leg.
Yeah. So, Jason, you're going to like this pick. Aaron Rodgers, 22-35, 151, no touchdowns, no interceptions. I mean, if you've seen him play, he just looks awful. He looks like he should be in a nursing home eating like pudding from a spoon or something. I mean, how much help does a guy need to win a football game? He's basically the owner of the Jets at this point. Woody Johnson might as well go back to the ambassador of Britain or whatever he's doing soon. But, I mean, he basically got Devontae Adams, and he just can't get the ball to anyone. I mean, the run game's not looking good either, but you're a quarterback, a former MVP winner. You need to produce at some point, and it seems like that's just not going to happen for the Jets in 2024.
It's not. It's not.
So you've accepted it now.
I have it. I've accepted it.
Welcome to being a Giants fan. Other side of New York. So
I don't know. I mean, like you've seen the Giants make the playoffs, no? Like
Seen them win a
in
Super
my
Bowl,
in
I
my
mean.
life,
Yeah,
I
I was
like
like
have
4.
not seen the Jets make
What
the
year were you
playoffs. They made the playoffs when I was born. I was 1 year old.
Yeah.
I-
You haven't seen them.
I haven't seen
you don't
them make the
remember that.
playoffs.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no.
Jason, underachiever. Who do you got?
I have someone who didn't necessarily put up a bad performance, but obviously it wasn't what we were expecting. Saquon Barkley had 14 carries, 66 yards, and 1 reception. Obviously they were blowing out the Cowboys. He sat for most of the fourth quarter, but I mean you're against the division rival. You have a head of steam. You're trying to get as many yards. He was projected just like over 20 fantasy points. He really let like a ton of people down in that category. Actually, I was playing against him, so I was happy. And if Younghoe Koo didn't miss all his field goals, I would have won. But I just think with a caliber running back as Saquon, I mean, you have to put up more than 66 yards against this seemingly awful Giants or Cowboys defense.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm just so used to the Giants being awful.
They were just airing the ball out downfield.
Another thing I saw from that game, how can Jerry Jones not build a stadium correctly? Did you
Oh,
have you
yeah.
seen that
That's not even that,
from,
just
like,
put in curtains.
put in curtains, yeah. I mean,
What do you think we're gonna do? Rebuild the whole stadium?
God, man, he's so petty.
rotate it like 90 degrees and you'll be fine. Dad, who do you got?
As a Broncos fan, I feel like I have to pick Will Lutz. Obviously, he made both of his PATs, but both of those field goals were missed. I mean, I know one of them got blocked and one of his linemen literally fell down, but he missed the other one, and that would have
Also
put them
would
up
have
one,
difference.
and they wouldn't have even needed that last one. So it's got to be Will Lutz. for
How
me.
far out was the last kick or the kick before the block one?
The last kick was 35 yards. I don't remember what the other one was, but
I mean, Will Lutz has been pretty good this year. It's definitely makeable for him.
definitely a makeable one.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, so
That's
another
fair.
field goal you expect under like 50, 60 yards. Another one you think it's on.
There's a lot of special team plays. I mean, there were a lot of fumbled punts this week. Did anyone it was like, oh, and it hit it right off his chest. I swear, like, it said
Yeah,
that
honestly,
6 times.
sloppy play this
I was
week.
about to say
Yeah.
the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah, something. The Giants started off the week sloppy. It just spread to every other team. So now we're gonna look ahead to week 11, which might I say a lot of better games this week, and that might be because of the 3 or 4 horrible teams on a bye week this week. But Rob, what do you think is the best game of the week?
You got a lot of picks in here. I'm going with a bit of a sleeper pick. I got the Bengals at the Chargers on Sunday Night Football. This game got flexed a couple weeks ago. I think it was for Jets Colts. But these teams, I don't think they've played since 2021, which is really surprising because Justin Herbert and Joe Burrow are two of the most exciting young quarterbacks in the AFC and really in the entire league. So I'm surprised that the schedule makers really didn't put them against each other. Last time I played, I remember it being a pretty exciting game that the Bengals came out on top. And yeah, really just two exciting quarterbacks. You got the Bengals, who've been great all year. Well, the offense has been great. Defense can't say the same. Chargers don't look down, but I think they're 6-4. So they've looked great as well.
6-3 Chargers,
6-3, that's right. They had their bye. But yeah, both are solid teams, and this game definitely will decide the playoff spot for either one. If the Bengals, this is a must-win game for the Bengals, by the way.
Totally.
If they don't lose,
Totally.
they're done.
Yeah, I don't know if you heard Harbaugh's mic'd up last week. I mean, him and Justin Herbert, the connection they have is just incredible to see.
Oh, Herbert loves it. I mean,
Yeah.
even more so than he already did.
Yeah. I mean, I'm going with just a no-brainer game of the week. It's Chiefs at Buffalo. I mean, we're going to hear what?
None.
We're going to hear Romo Nance just dissect this game. Patrick Mahomes is going to have another MVP moment, which he has not had a lot of this year, but
Another, like,
he's 9-0.
we dating back to a year.
If your team is 9-0, I don't care how bad you've played this year, you're leading your team to 9-0, possibly 10-0.
Josh
You're
Allen
trying
is
to
catching. Josh Allen is catching a touchdown this week. Mark my words. Mark my words.
Wow. I mean, I think it's going to be an incredible game. Stadium Pulse is going to be rocking up in Highmark, I think it is, up in Buffalo.
Buffalo, yep.
Yep.
I mean, where a lot of tables going to be broken up there this weekend. Surprised this game is not primetime. It is a 4:25 kickoff. I feel like it should be primetime.
Yeah, but it'll be dark by the second half, though.
I mean, yeah, that's
Yeah.
true. But I think Buffalo is going to lose this game. Kansas City Chiefs will be 10-0, 17-0 rest of the season, three-peat the championship.
Are you a Chiefs fan at this
suck.
point?
I just like
First
seeing-
Marquez
I want the
Valdez
Chiefs
Scantling,
out,
now
takes their
this.
medicine.
No, you're like watching predictable football.
Yeah, Giants losing, Chiefs winning. I love it. I don't like to be surprised.
Why
when
am I
they
not
lose by
surprised? You
football.
gave MVS Player of the Week.
Jason, what's the game of the week?
I have the Commanders at the Eagles. The Eagles are right now leading the NFC East only because the Commanders haven't had a bye. It's 7-3 versus 7-2. This is going to be to decide who's going to be leading the division. Obviously, you haven't had it was like the stat, you haven't had a repeat division winner in that for like 15-something years. It was always the Eagles, Cowboys trading off, just Giants were thrown in there somewhere. Commanders have not had their time.
No, 2020, I think.
Oh yeah, when they
won
went 6-11,
7-9.
7-9.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry
No.
about that.
Yes, but I mean, obviously, they haven't had a season to look up for in the
Yeah.
playoffs. They obviously 7-9. You're not giving much hope to the playoffs. 7-3 right now. You're looking if you could win this game. Maybe Marshawn Lattimore plays, helps cover
I don't think
AJ
he's
Brown.
He's out.
playing
He's
tonight.
out.
this week,
No,
yeah.
not
They just
playing.
Let him sit.
But I mean, the Commanders have to step up their run defense on Saquon Barkley. We're going to see how that plays out, especially with Saquon not having the best game against the Giants. I think Jaden Daniels has a chance to prove himself, see if he could get the Commanders over a hump that they need to get to, winning first in the division. That would be great for them. But I think this is just going to be a great game. I think we're going to have A.J. Brown and Terry McLaurin have an absolute show.
Yeah, I mean, the Commanders have written the book on how to complete a rebuild in the fastest way possible.
Yeah.
New head coach, new OC, new quarterback, and you're just a dominant football team. You're like 7-3?
7-3.
7-3. I mean, they're incredible. And this is first year under a new coaching regime. Cliff Kingsbury has just rewritten this Commanders offense, and that fan base has to be ecstatic down in DC.
Feels like every year we have one of those teams that just rebuilds like out of nowhere. You have the Bengals,
Never
then
the
last
Giants.
year Texans, now the Commanders.
We just,
I mean,
we
like
look
it has never been the Jets.
or the Giants. Thad, game of the week, top us off.
Week 11 game of the week for me, 1 p.m. slate. Ravens at Steelers, right? They're both coming off huge wins over the Commanders and the Bengals. I think if the Steelers can pull this one off this week, I think Russell Wilson just flat out proved himself, right?
Yeah.
I think he still can develop in that offense with Mike Williams, new additions, but yeah, I think it's going to be high scoring, just like both their games last week, and I think it's going to be a great showdown.
And,
So
you know, he really could. That's a reality. He could very well just go right through this Ravens pass defense. They're not great. We saw that.
32nd.
264 yards.
Yeah.
They're not good. And that feels crazy to say about Baltimore because they're a team that's been known for their defense for the past 10 years.
I have George Pickens in fantasy. I'm
Yeah,
hoping
projected for 16 this week.
for. I'm also 2-8. So
There's 16 fights this week, or 16
Yeah.
punches thrown by Pickens.
or UFC like slam downs.
Yeah.
He's had a couple of those randomly.
Even the balls on the other side of the field, he will just slam whoever is closest to him, ref, fan, other opposing player, his own teammate. He will just slam him to the ground just for fun. And I mean, Mr. Unlimited just performing great this year.
Steel got it.
wish he could have done it on the Broncos, but you know
Blame Nathaniel Hackett.
what can he do?
That's
Yeah,
Hackett.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So
Yeah,
that
I'll blame Hackett.
everyone's blaming Hackett. Now Rodgers. So that's going to wrap us up for today's episode. We have a great slate of games coming up in Week 11. So that's going to end it up here. I'm Henry Lapin, Rob Frangione, Jason Generalis, Thad Burley, and we'll see you next time on episode 7. Thank you so much.